Good afternoon, Northern Europe, and welcome to a new episode of the News Bulletin. We're very happy to be able to welcome you. My name is Alexandra. I'm an account strategist for the Google Marketing Solutions team, and I'm working for the Belgian market.
Yes, my name is Oscar. I'm also a Google Marketing Solutions account strategist for the Dutch market.
Mm-hmm. And today, when it comes to topics, we're going to have our second news bulletin about automation. So about 2 weeks ago, we had a first topic, which was really trying to handle all the frequently asked questions around automation. And one of those is usually how we should handle automation during peak seasons the best. And that is the topic we'll be tackling today. Yep. We'll also be looking at a UK case study from Secret Escapes, and then moving on to product updates, one very small kind of announcement of a new launch of tutorials, and then a bigger announcement of a new type of campaign when it comes to YouTube. As always, we'll be keeping some time for questions towards the end of the live stream, but feel free to send them in during the live stream, and we'll get to them at the end. Which brings us to automation.
Automation, yeah. Automation, we will especially zoom into automation during peak seasons. And I think now also with Black Friday and Christmas coming along, it's an especially important topic, but actually something that is relevant for the whole year.
Absolutely. And these are all seasons that are taking more and more, grabbing more attention in our markets, gaining in popularity.
True.
If we just even look at what happened to Singles Days this weekend, which was the biggest Singles Day in our market yet. So this is definitely a very relevant topic to be addressing today.
I love the concept of Singles Day.
Yeah,
it's great. It's a great trade-off
import
against Valentine's Day.
Yeah, it's a good way to just spend more money. Yeah.
So how does smart bidding handle seasonality? So this slide, I think, greatly summarizes that we should first look at, okay, what kind of trend are we looking at? So is it a longer trend or a short spike? So longer trends are sustained increases or decreases in conversion rates, such as over the Christmas season, as conversion rate changes gradually over multiple weeks. In this case, it is okay to adjust your smart bidding targets. So if you use maximize conversions, target ROAS, or target CPA, you can adjust the targets, but do so gradually. Less than 15% per time is advised. And then make sure that the smart bidding algorithm can get adjusted to this new target, and then you can adjust it again. Short spikes are however, defined as brief and usually have a significant increase in conversion rates, such as Black Friday, in a very short amount of time. In general, actually, target CPA and target ROAS already do handle short-term events efficiently, especially when you have a short conversion cycle. So a conversion cycle means the time in between the first click on an ad and the final conversion. And in many cases, nothing has to be done. However, in some rare cases, when the conversion rate increases with 20% in just one day, or more, of course, the conversion rate can be too fast for the algorithm to adjust. And in that case, it would be a good idea to adjust your target CPA or target ROAS targets. For example, if you expect your conversion rate to double, you may want to double your CPA and half your ROAS. Or if you expect your conversion rates to increase with 30%, you may want to increase your CPA with 30% or decrease your target ROAS with 30%.
Absolutely. So it seems the first step here is deciding whether or identifying if it's going to be a longer trend or a short spike, because the way you're going to react is going to be accordingly. Yeah.
Absolutely. And here it's summarized again. So you have two scenarios. Very important to note, and we will show you in the next slide as well. It's important to know what the days to conversion is in your account. So keep that in mind. It can be found in the attribution and time-like reports. We will show you in the next slide where you can find this in Google Ads. And because on average, it takes one conversion cycle for the smart bidding to adjust to performance changes. So that's good to keep in mind when you are preparing for longer or shorter trends for peaks. So an example of a longer trend would be the holiday season. So for example, Christmas takes quite some weeks. No immediate action is required. A shift in conversion rate is gradual and is addressed by smart bidding. Also good to know is that smart bidding will, in these instances, take into account already the seasonalities in a week. So for example, if it knows that on Monday, in general, you have lower volume, and on Friday it's the peak, it will already take this historical data and optimize for the future. And then in the bidding strategies. However, for the short spikes, which are less than 48 hours, an example is Black Friday, actually also in most cases no action is required. The only time when action is required is when the conversion rate increases with the 20%, as we saw earlier, and then it is a good idea to adjust your target ROAS or your target CPA with the same amount. Yep. This is just a screenshot of where you can find your conversion delay. If you click on Tools on the top right hand in Google Ads, and then you go to Search Attribution in the fourth column, you can see there what your average conversion cycle is. So, for example, for this account, it takes 7.7 days, 7.8 days to make a conversion.
So the important thing here is that you actually use the data that's already available into account and not something that you might feel like the conversion cycle might be. Sure. So if you're a retailer, it's something we hear very often, oh, my conversion cycle is about a day, 2 days, 3 days maybe, but not more. That can be the case when it comes to your experience, but you have to look at the data that's already in an account, because that's also the data that the smart bidding is going to take into account when making its choices.
Absolutely.
So just making sure that you're all on the right page, you and the machine learning, is actually quite important. So looking at those reports is always quite interesting. Yeah.
Absolutely true. Another question, that's a very good point. And another question that I also very often get is like, okay, how do I know what my how much my conversion rate is going to change for Black Friday? In that case, I always advise look at your historical data, look at the data that you already have acquired from last year Black Friday or the year before, compare the conversion rates right before and right after Black Friday and during Black Friday, and that can also help you to change your smart bidding bits accordingly.
Absolutely.
So that's actually a very nice bridge to the following slide. So here you see also when you should adjust the smart bidding metric. So the recommended timing is right at the beginning and the end of the peak, as you can see here in the light blue. Adjustments to the target metric to support smart bidding in adapting to seasonal events should be made right when the campaign's conversion rate deviates from its usual average. On the right-hand side is another very good trade-off when thinking about setting your targets. In general, what you see is that if you decrease your CPAs or you increase your ROAS, that will lead to less volume, but also more value per conversion. So the actual volume or the actual value in every transaction or every conversion will be more. And in general, the more you increase your CPA and of course decrease your ROAS, the more volume you will generate, but the less value per conversion. So the key takeaway here is when choosing a target for smart bidding, always keep in mind that sales eventually have the goal to maximize volume. And actually, it is a recommendation from Google, especially in high season, to make sure that you can acquire more volume, because that means that the demand in the market is getting bigger, and you obviously want a bigger share of the slice, a bigger slice of the pie, because there's more volume. So for the high seasons, make sure that you increase your CPAs or you decrease your ROASs to make sure that you can address the increasing volume.
Absolutely. And when we're talking about increasing volumes or acquiring more volume, you're talking about acquiring potential new clients, right? So when you're looking at peak events or peak sales events, it's also very much of a unique opportunity to acquire first-time customers that you'll be able to retain in the future, and then thus creating customer lifetime value. But so the interest here is to use those moments, those key moments in your industry or in the market, to really just acquire a customer base, acquire an audience, and so that should trade off to the efficiency or the quality of each interaction. Yeah,
I think that's a very good point, Alexandra. And as we all know, like marketing budgets are cheap. For marketing, it's cheaper to, in general, retain an old client than to get a new client. So this is a very good way to just in a very short time, indeed, get those first time customers. Very, very good point. So moving away from smart bidding, it does require an uplift in conversion. Some advertisers might feel like they want to shift to smart bidding or manual, from smart bidding to manual or enhanced CPC during peak seasons to ensure that it can compensate. But it's usually not a very good idea because, as this slide also demonstrates, on average, you will your amount of conversions will decrease. So for search, if you switch from target CPA to maximize conversions to manuals, it means that you may need to make up for around 20% of conversions. For enhanced CPC, this is around 13%. And you can see for shopping and display, the numbers are quite similar. So I think it's good to know and keep in mind that even in peak seasons, it's good to trust on the algorithm. Yes, if the conversion rates increase with 20% or more in less than 24 hours, in that case, it is a good idea to change your target CPA and target ROAS. But in general, it is really advised to trust the algorithm because it is designed to work with seasonality.
Yeah, absolutely.
Both long and short term.
Yeah. Cool. So now we'll be looking at an advertiser that fully embraced the automation world and did so by implementing smart display campaigns. So from the UK, we have advertiser Secret Escapes that was actually facing the challenge of really trying to scale across different geographies and locations quickly and at the most efficient cost possible. So Secret Escape is actually a platform where you can book very exclusive VIP type of experiences and vacations and holidays, but you have to become a member first. And they are active in quite a lot of countries, and they were looking to scale that. So the approach they went for was to really start testing with Google Smart Display campaigns and to choose a test market to do that. So that was Italy in this case. So they went for the Smart Display campaigns that we also called SDCs, which include target CPA bidding, which really allowed them to set kind of the maximum limit of their cost per acquisition that they wanted to test out in that test market. What they also did is also something that we bring forth a lot as best practice was include a lot of a wide range of creative assets that would have different type of messages addressing different consumer needs. So that's really important. The better your creative assets, the more diversified they are, usually the better your campaign is going to perform. So that's great best practice there. So that resulted in a lowering of the cost per acquisition in that test market of 20%, which is already a good result. And then they saw actually a different type of uplift in two types of markets that they were addressing. When it comes to the very large and mature markets they were active in, they saw an uplift of 10%. But then in smaller markets, which Italy was a smaller market for them as well, they saw an increase of 119% in conversions. So very successful test case here, but mostly because the inputs were right. And that's really what we want you guys to take away from this.
Yeah.
So Claudia, which is a marketing manager at Secret Escape, mentioned that the smart display campaigns helped them to really quickly scale their member acquisition volumes across a display network specifically. And that also boosted their traffic and reach, and that improved the average conversion rates and thus their return on investment, which is kind of exactly what we're looking for. Nice. So great to hear.
Yeah.
Moving on to product updates. So first and foremost, if you want to also be able to go a little bit more in depth with the subject of today, there is a new, it's actually the same channel, but a new series of tutorials coming out to our Google Ads channel. And currently 2 episodes are out. The Smart Bidding for Seasonal Times, which is kind of the same topic we are addressing today. And then the one before that was a video about how you can best create and set up drafts and experiments. They're actually really good, so that's why we highly recommend that you would check them out, and there's a bunch of them on the pipeline, so look out for more tutorials. Last but not least, a new campaign setup or type, which is a true view for reach, which is pretty cool because it's always very nice when we can launch a new campaign type. That doesn't happen very often. And this one is really all about, reach and how you can drive an efficient amount of impression. So the way it works is that you can actually just work with a simple cost per 1,000 impression buying. To really try to be able to drive results on an attentive reach, so a selected type of audience also that you might choose. So there's kind of 2 test cases here. You can either, if you're trying to really blast when it comes to unique reach, you can set up this type of campaign with a frequency cap of 1 time per month. And that will help you to really just reach a large number of unique consumers in a certain target audience that you might choose. Mm-hmm. And the goal there is really just to have a cost-effective way to, for example, complement any type of TV campaign that you might have.
I think it's also a really great way to, when you're very early in the funnel yet, and you want to make your brand knowledgeable to a new audience. I think this is a really good way to in a very short amount of time, get a lot of reach in a very cost-effective manner. Because I think also TrueView for Reach is it's relatively cheap to get a lot of impressions. Yeah, absolutely. So it's a very good one for branding, especially, I think.
Very, very interesting. I love to test this out with any type of launches, for example, rebrandings. I work with quite a lot of startups. This is really cool for them to be able to just have max attention in a certain geographic or within a certain type of audience. So this is really cool.
True.
Then if you'd rather just not drive a certain amount of unique reach, but drive higher frequency, you can just remove frequency caps and you will attain that goal as well, and thus maximize awareness within, again, certain geographics, certain demographics, certain audience types. So that is the same type of setup, but you just choose to go without a frequency cap. In both cases, you can measure the result or the impact of those campaigns by looking at the unique reach and frequency report, or by setting up brand lifts with your account manager or account strategist, which is kind of the same for any type of YouTube campaign, but really interesting also in this case, right?
Yeah, absolutely. True.
So when it comes to details of this new campaign type, as mentioned, we're looking at target cost per 1,000 impressions. So those are usually 25 to 40% lower than just through your in-stream CPMs. You are built on the first frame of the impression. So it's really, we're looking at impression-based here, not view-based. So that's a big difference as well.
Yeah, so really making sure that a lot of people get exposure to your brand and not necessarily watch the whole video.
Yeah. Which then, we'll get to that in a minute, but means that your creative is going to be quite important.
Sure.
So when it comes to creative, jumping there right now, we recommend ads between 15 and 20 seconds. This will be skippable ads as well. So make sure that you bring your brand or message forth very quickly in the ad will be quite important, but any type of length will be accepted. Yeah. When it comes to targeting, everything's possible, which is pretty cool. So all demos and audiences, including advanced audiences that we also have available on the YouTube network, can be layered on to this campaign type as well.
True. I think it's a really cool new campaign type. And as the name already says, YouTube for reach, I think it's a very good way to, in a cost-effective manner, reach a super big audience. You can see also for the CPM bidding that it's on average 25 to 40% lower CPM than TrueView in-stream. Yeah. So it's a really great tool to reach a very big audience in a short amount of time.
Absolutely.
Efficiently, yeah.
So where can you find this type of campaign? Or actually, I'm jumping ahead here. But as mentioned already, so you can use any type of audience targeting that you may want. The target cost per 1,000 impression bidding is the way it works. So you have to kind of have a target for the type of consumers that you're trying to reach, the type of audience you're trying to reach. Last but not least, that's the most important part. So where can you actually find it? When you're setting up a new campaign, you have to select the brand awareness goal and then go to the skippable in-stream type to be able to see TrueView on cost per 1,000 impression to be able to have TrueView for reach going on. So please go experiment. Come back to us with your results. I think it's also a very good way to be able to complement indeed any type of offline campaigns that you're trying to set up as well, where your main goal is to really get a lot of reach. Those two kind of talk the same language, so that's pretty cool.
Absolutely, yeah.
All right, moving on to questions. I think we are pretty dry when it comes to questions, which is good because it means that we were very clear. But we would want to thank you for your time in any case, and we'll be back in 2 weeks with another topic. Looking forward.
See you in 2 weeks.
Thank you.
Ciao.
Bye.